Morbid facts. In Connecticut, 1986, 39-year-old flight attendant Helly Crafts was brutally murdered by her husband Richard after she caught him cheating on her. He then put her body through a wood chipper and ground her remains into a lake. Richard was sentenced to 50 years in prison but has since been released. Today would have been the 50th birthday of Iranian filmmaker Babak Karamdan. In 2021, he was murdered by his parents in an honor killing for still being single at the age of 46. Babak's parents confessed to drugging and stabbing their son several times, later stating that they were proud of their actions and showed no remorse. An Indiana judge recently ruled that taxpayers will be funding the sex reassignment surgery of a vicious murderer in prison. Jonathan Richardson was convicted of fatally strangling his 11-month-old stepdaughter in 2001. The ruling states that the surgery is a medical necessity that is required to prevent a risk of serious bodily and psychological harm. With the Menendez brothers back in the spotlight, let's take a look at the true reasons why the boys killed their parents. For starters, photos were found of the boys' unclothed bodies at 6 and 8 years old, which had their heads cropped out and focused on their privates. In one of the photos, 6-year-old Eric appears to be erect. The pics were sealed in an envelope with their mother's handwriting on it saying Eric's 6th birthday. According to medical records, there was an unexplained injury to the back of Eric's throat when he was 7 years old. Dr. Carrie English testified that the type of injury was a clear indication of oral copulation in children. When Lyle was 9 years old, he told his cousin Diane Vandermolen that he was afraid his dad was gonna come into his room, and that he and his dad had been touching each other down there. Diane also said that one time Jose put Lyle on a kitchen counter and prompted Lyle to jump off and he was going to catch him. As Lyle did so, Jose backed off and let him fall to the ground, telling him that you can never trust anybody. Their cousin Andy Cano testified that when he was 10 years old, 12-year-old Eric told him that his dad was massaging his D. Eric was trying to find out if these massages were normal and eventually told Andy that these massages are beginning to hurt. Andy ended up dying at age 30 from sleeping pills, and his mother told reporters he died because he couldn't cope with the incarceration of his cousins. After Andy passed away, his mother found a letter that 17-year-old Eric had written to him a few months before the murders. In the letter, Eric mentions the non-stop abuse. Mom isn't doing good. I don't know why she puts up with dad's shit. At times, I wish I could talk to her about things, you know? But the way she worships him and tells him everything, I'm just so afraid she'll tell him whatever I say. I just can't risk it. So I'm stuck here alone. I've been trying to avoid dad. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. He's so overweight that I just can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid. You just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle. Am I a serious wimpus? I don't know, I'll make it through this. I can handle it, Andy. I need to stop thinking about it. 2 more cousins, Kathleen and Alan, spent summers at the Menendez household and said the father would often take the boys to their bedroom and forbid the cousins from going down the hall. The cousins also testified in court that Jose and the boys often showered together, even when they were teenagers. Alan and Kathleen said they could hear cries and moans coming from the bedroom, but Kitty Menendez would turn up the TV volume really high so that they couldn't hear what was happening. At the age of 14, Lyle Menendez wrote a school essay called I Will Change Your Verdict, about a man who's sentenced to death for killing a child molester to protect a 12-year-old boy. Just before writing the essay, Lyle found out for the first time that his father had been molesting 12-year-old Eric. The essay reads, "A man awaits his turn on the electric chair. You, the average citizens of America, put that man there. Now you can taste his death. You hope it hurts and is slow. Do you know what drove him to do it? You never even gave him a chance to talk. He only wanted to say a few things, but no, not you. You couldn't let this thing talk as if he had rights or feelings. You only looked at the evidence, smiled, and yelled guilty. Why, my friend? Why?" At that same age of 14, Lyle began losing his hair, an indication of the stress and psychological turmoil he endured as a child. He also continued playing with stuffed animals and wetting the bed well into his teenage years due to the lasting effects of the abuse. After the murders, the brothers were both evaluated in jail by some of the best child abuse and trauma experts in the country, and they all concluded that both the boys had been severely traumatized, molested, and abused. Dozens of other witnesses, including friends, family members, neighbors, teachers, and coaches, supported these claims throughout the first trial. But despite all this, the first trial ended with 2 deadlocked juries, since all of the men reportedly raised their hands in favor of first-degree murder, while none of the women raised theirs. In the retrial, the judge didn't allow any testimony about the sexual abuse claims, and both brothers were sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Several jurors from the second trial later revealed that they never would have voted in favor of first-degree murder if they had known about the detailed history of their awful abuse. This woman was caught on camera doing something deeply disturbing to win a chess match. Earlier this year, Russian pro chess player Amina Abakarova apparently needed a way to knock her opponent out of a tournament. So she decided to go to the extreme and poison the woman, 30-year-old Ume Osmanova, in what's being treated as an assassination attempt. Amina poured mercury from a thermometer onto the victim's chessboard before her next match and smeared it all over her side of the board with one of the pieces. Osmanova said she began feeling unwell during her match 30 minutes later, complaining of sudden severe nausea and dizziness, prompting an immediate call for medical assistance. After the security footage was reviewed by authorities, Amina had no choice but to confess to the murder attempt. Osmanova ended up making a full recovery, as the attacker was banned from future chess competitions and stripped of her previous titles. Abakarova now potentially faces several years in Russian prison for the senseless attack. In November of '99, the girlfriend of Panthers wide receiver Ray Caruth was shot 4 times and later died in the hospital. It was soon determined that her NFL boyfriend had hired a hitman to kill her after she reportedly refused to abort their baby. The baby ended up surviving, and Caruth went to prison for 19 years before being released in 2018. During a tense pro basketball game in 1992, Serbian player Boban Jankovic was frustrated with a foul call and slammed his head into a padded concrete post. He immediately dropped to the floor and was never able to walk again after badly damaging his spinal cord. Earlier this year, 44-year-old Pennsylvania man John Matthew Chapman was sentenced to life in prison after driving his girlfriend across the country and luring her into a Nevada desert for a bondage photo shoot. He then bound her to a signpost with zip ties, taped her mouth and nose shut, and watched as she died. Found in a jungle cave in 1867, a feral boy named Dina Sanichar preferred eating raw meat, had trouble standing on 2 legs, growled like a wolf, chewed on bones to sharpen his teeth, and never learned how to speak. He eventually became the inspiration for Mowgli in the Jungle Book. In 2016, 11-year-old Nebraska girl Lulu Gilreath was going on her first carnival ride when it quickly turned into anyone's worst nightmare. Her hair got caught in the machinery of a spinning ride at a carnival, and her scalp was almost completely torn off. The horrible accident damaged both of her eyes and nearly killed her. After World War II, Japanese General Hitoshi Imamura was sentenced to 10 years in prison after failing to control his unit, which committed horrible atrocities toward Allied soldiers. Believing that his own sentence was too light compared to the men under his command, Imamura built a replica prison in his garden where he stayed for decades until his death in 1968. Last September, 39-year-old Florida mom Kathy Griffith was brutally stabbed to death by her teenage son Colin. He called 911 saying, "I had a very, very long fight with my mom. She fell on a knife and she's bleeding from the neck." Police arriving at the scene described Colin as showing zero emotion, and the first thing he said to them was, "I know my rights." This all transpired just 1 year after Colin was charged with fatally shooting his divorced father Charles, but was released on the claim of self-defense. Kathy trusted her son at the time and even bailed him out of jail. Leading up to Kathy's murder, Colin had reportedly threatened to kill his mother many times, but she continued to love him unconditionally. He was said to be a very spoiled child who had been in and out of mental facilities for years after being diagnosed with PTSD. According to reports, Colin developed this after being held captive by his father for over 1,000 days without human contact upon telling his dad that he was gay. Colin has been charged with first-degree murder, as prosecutors have described him as a violent murderer who must be kept separate from civil society. In 1978, Hustler magazine owner Larry Flynt was shot in the spine by a white supremacist serial killer, who was apparently outraged by an interracial photo shoot in one of the magazine editions. Flint survived the murder attempt but was left permanently paralyzed from the waist down. Years later, Flint pleaded for his attacker to be spared from execution, saying, "A government that forbids killing among its citizens should not be in the business of killing people itself. But with up to 22 total victims and the desire to start a race war, the serial killer was eventually put to death by lethal injection. Around 1:30 a.m. in August of 2021, a woman wearing only a bra and leggings was captured on a trail cam in a remote North Carolina forest. 3 hours later, she was captured again, this time walking much slower with a noticeable limp. 6 months later, the woman's remains were found in the same area, still wearing the same clothing. Despite all efforts to identify her, the woman remains a complete mystery to this day. The double rainbow guy Paul Vasquez was a constant uploader on YouTube and created thousands of videos. Even though he died of an illness in 2020 at the age of 57, he scheduled 15 years of uploads in advance before he died, leaving his channel still very active now, 4 years after his death. This is the tragic transformation of Florida man Robert Hardister, who was arrested 9 separate times for various infractions over an 8-year span. British doctor Thomas Kwan recently attempted to murder his mother's partner in one of the strangest ways possible. He disguised himself as a nurse and knocked on the man's door to offer him a free COVID jab. But instead of the vaccine, he put an unidentified poison in the syringe and injected it into his stepdad's arm. The next day, the man experienced serious pain and blistering in his shoulder, prompting him to go to the hospital and having part of his arm removed. He ended up surviving the bizarre attack, and Kwan was charged with attempted murder. Diddy's father, Melvin Combs, was an associate of convicted New York drug lord Frank Lucas. When Diddy was just 2 years old, his father was gunned down in a related gang attack. In 1991, P. Diddy organized an AIDS fundraiser after a charity basketball game. The event was oversold and a stampede occurred that resulted in the deaths of 9 people. He was quickly criticized by the mayor for letting inexperienced people plan the event and selling way too many tickets. A former FBI agent has claimed that Tupac's former boss Suge Knight financed the murder of Biggie Smalls in 1997, but the intended target was actually Biggie's boss P. Diddy, who was in the car in front of Biggie at the time. According to her lawsuit filed last year, when Cassie Ventura hit a rough patch in her relationship with Diddy in 2012, she briefly dated Kid Cudi. Combs was apparently so angry at this that he mentioned he wanted to blow up the rapper's car. The lawsuit reads, around that time, Kid Cudi's car exploded in his driveway. This elderly couple just agreed to be euthanized. Former Royal Air Force engineer Pete Scott and his retired nurse wife Christine have signed up for a double SUI pod in Switzerland, where voluntary assisted SUI has been legal since 1942. The pair made the decision after 80-year-old Christine was diagnosed with early-stage vascular dementia. Married for 46 years, they plan to die peacefully together in each other's arms with the help of the sarcophagus pod. This controversial death capsule works by replacing air with 100% nitrogen, which quickly renders the occupant unconscious and fully stops their breathing within 10 minutes, resulting in a swift, painless death. As stated by Pete, we have had long, happy, healthy, fulfilled lives, but here we are in old age and it does not do nice things to you. The idea of watching the slow degradation of Chris's mental abilities is horrific to me. Obviously, I would care for her to the point I could not, but she has nursed enough people with dementia throughout her career to be adamant that she wants to remain in control of herself and her life. Assisted dying gives her that opportunity, and I would not want to go on living without her. Nicknamed the Princess of R&B, popular singer Aaliyah lost her life in a tragic private plane crash when she was just 22 years old. Despite being warned that there was far too much weight for a safe flight, she and her entourage were eager to return home and demanded to leave immediately. Shortly after takeoff, the plane lost its balance and crashed just 200 feet from the runway, killing everyone on board. In 2013, the body of 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson was found inside of a rolled-up gym mat at his Georgia high school. Authorities later concluded that he had become trapped upside down while trying to retrieve his shoes, and eventually died from positional asphyxia. In 2002, schizophrenic British artist Richard Sumner entered a remote forest in Wales. He apparently handcuffed himself to a tree and threw the keys out of reach. His skeleton was found 3 years later, with evidence suggesting he likely regretted his decision. American actor and model John Eric Hexum was once seen as the next big thing in Hollywood due to his charming looks, charisma, and radio voice. But in 1984, he died on the set of the TV show Cover Up after accidentally discharging a blank cartridge into his skull. Hexum had apparently been playing Russian roulette with a prop gun during a break in filming, and the muzzle blast caused enough blunt force trauma to fracture a piece of his skull that propelled into his brain. Serial killer Israel Keyes went the extra mile to ensure that he would never be detected. He had no preferred victim type and never killed in the same area twice. For one murder, he flew to Chicago and drove 1,000 miles all the way to Vermont in a rental car, then used a murder kit he'd hidden there 2 years prior. When shopping on his murder trips, he always kept his phone turned off and only ever paid in cash. But Keyes was caught in 2012 after using a victim's credit card when he didn't have any cash on hand. This is the clearest and most recent photo ever taken on the surface of Venus. It was taken by a Soviet space probe in 1982, just before it was destroyed by the dense 900-degree atmosphere on the planet. This incredible photograph of Freddie Mercury performing on stage was taken by a 16-year-old girl who snuck her camera into a Queen concert in 1978. Here's an aerial photograph showing an uncontacted tribe in the Amazon that was ready to go to battle against a helicopter. Someone accidentally deleted important photos from their camera, so an image recovery software brought them all back, including this test shot taken where the camera was assembled somewhere in China. This incredible award-winning photograph from 2017 left scientists from all over the world completely astonished. At the very center of the image is a single atom that was suspended in motion by electric fields. What makes this photo so amazing is that it was captured by just an ordinary camera. In 2015, Caitlyn Jenner rear-ended a 69-year-old woman at a red light who was thrown into oncoming traffic and fatally struck by a Hummer. Jenner claims the paparazzi was at fault for the crash after constantly stalking the reality star and pulling up too closely to Caitlyn's car. The case was settled outside of court as Jenner avoided any charges for the tragedy. Shoes discovered in the wreckage of the Titanic are often found in pairs because they were worn by the victims when they died. Their entire bodies disintegrated, but the shoes remained intact due to protective oils in the leather. In 2012, Nigerian businessman and polygamist Yoroko Onaja died after 5 of his 6 wives forced him to have intercourse with each of them. They were apparently jealous of the attention he gave to his youngest wife and threatened him with knives, demanding he sleep with them. Onaja managed to have intercourse with 4 of them, but apparently had a heart attack and stopped breathing before reaching the 5th. I'll never look at Pokemon the same after this. An unknown perpetrator recently managed to hack into Game Freak's documents and released countless files, including future game data, personal info about employees, and most notoriously, lore stories about sexual relationships between humans and Pokemon. One such story involves a young girl who is kidnapped by a Typhlosion disguised as a human that apparently proceeds to grape the child and get her pregnant with a human Pokemon hybrid. Another story involves a group of humans that capture and torture a bunch of Slackoths. One of the women in the group is later kidnapped by the Slackoth tribe and impregnated by their slacking leader, eventually giving birth to her own Slackoth baby. Similar disturbing stories detail human relationships with Lapras, Rapidash, and Octillery. Game Freak has reportedly apologized to everyone affected by the data breach. But it's unclear why these particular unsettling stories were ever written in the first place, let alone found among Game Freak's files. Photographer Herbert van der Beek captured this insanely rare moment of a jaguar diving underwater to catch its prey. Unlike domesticated cats, jaguars love the water and are known to be excellent swimmers. In 1932, Dr. Eric Solomon faked a broken arm so that he could sneak a camera in his cast to photograph the Supreme Court. It's one of only 2 existing photos of the Supreme Court in session. Here's an amazing photo of a diver at Silfra Fissure in Iceland touching both North America and Europe at the same time. This is an extremely rare view of people peeking out the balcony of the Statue of Liberty. This area has been closed to the public since 1916 due to terrorist threats. A Florida photographer captured this incredible image of an owl raising a duckling after mistaking the egg for its own. Concerned that the owl would eat the duckling once it realized the situation, a local wildlife sanctuary agreed to take care of the baby bird when they had the chance to steal it from the owl's nest. Chechen girl Amina Ependiva is diagnosed with 2 rare genetic conditions. albinism, which makes her skin and hair extremely white, and heterochromia, in which her eyes are two completely different colors. Speaking of albinism, this extremely rare white killer whale was spotted off the coast of Alaska in 2020. The odds of this happening are about 1 in 10,000, as only 8 albino orcas have ever been seen in recorded history. Svalbard, Norway is the only visa-free zone in the world. Regardless of citizenship, anyone can live and work there for as long as they want. Oh, not the rare bison sirloin roast. I'm trying to record a video here. Sheesh. Bill Watterson, creator of Calvin and Hobbes, refused to license his characters for any toys or products, but he made an exception for a 1993 textbook called Teaching with Calvin and Hobbes that was made to help students with learning disabilities. Only around 20 copies are known to exist, and the most recent one sold for over $10,000 in 2009. According to Hinduism, the Yamuna River is considered a river of heaven and is believed to cleanse the mind of sin. Every year, thousands of people drink from and bathe in the water despite its toxic foam, which is the result of poorly treated sewage that's constantly dumped directly into the river. Various chemicals in the foam are known to have many negative health effects, including skin irritation, hair loss, breathing issues, and brain damage. Earlier this year, a former model and Miss Switzerland finalist was allegedly murdered by her husband, who then reportedly dismembered her body and pureed her remains in a blender. In 1947, there was a case in Louisiana where a young man failed to die during a botched electric chair execution, so his lawyers tried to argue that he had already been executed and that it was cruel to go through it a second time. After much deliberation, the Supreme Court eventually ruled against him, and the man was successfully executed by electric chair the next year. There are only 20 stealth bombers in the world, but this one was caught mid-flight in a Google Maps photo. Now that's what I call a photo bomber. Here's an incredible photo of the unbroken seal of King Tut's tomb as it was found by Howard Carter in 1922. In 2013, a Finnish photographer captured the extraordinary friendship between a female gray wolf and a male brown bear. They shared their food and spent several nights together over a 10-day span before eventually parting ways. This photo shows a rare view of Grand Central Terminal with the sun shining through the windows, which is no longer possible due to surrounding skyscrapers which now block out the sun. A family photo with the Northern Lights became a 1 in a million shot when a shooting star was also caught in the background. In 2013, the red-crested tree rat had been extinct for 113 years before one casually appeared on the handrail of an eco-lodge in Colombia. It let researchers photograph it for 2 hours before disappearing into the night, never to be seen again. 31-year-old One Direction member Liam Payne has died after falling from the 3rd floor of his balcony at an Argentinian hotel. In a statement, local authorities say they had responded to reports of an aggressive man who could be under the effects of drugs and alcohol. Upon arriving, they found Payne's lifeless body on the ground where the hotel manager had told them he heard a loud thud. The musician had been very open about his persistent struggles with addiction and depression in the past, but the details surrounding his death remain unclear at this time.